Hip-hop, is it a lifestyle? In the 1970s, a new cultural wave took over the Bronx in New York and changed the way of music forever. The first element is MCing, and we're going to discuss how it's evolved over years. Oh wait, DJ, spin that beat. The first element is evolved over years. You can do it alone or do it in pairs. You can do it bare or do it with the beat. Yo, Apples, bring on the heat.
The MC, the master of ceremony, the microphone checker, the wordsmith, someone that can, break down words, metaphors, styles, bring the whole current vibe to the table, their own swagger, the way they story tell, the way they influence your mind, how you think and feel. That's all part of what MCing means to me. And also, actually, for we grew up as MCs, you had to freestyle. We used to call it head tapping, where you could just rhyme from your head. And if you couldn't do that and write, you're not an MC. That was our definition. My brother was an influence for me for, MCing. I started to write rhymes, I started to do poetry and stories as a young kid, and then he introduced me to hip hop. I was saying my first track that I fell in love with was Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, which was Scorpio. I fell in love with the whole vibe of the music, and it was just like, what is this? I'm hearing different styles, but this is completely different, and I just started to develop it from there and write stuff. My first thing I wrote was for a youth club. In fact, I can remember the words, family of the distant land, your time is nearly here. The Holy Land is calling you, but still you cannot hear. For it is written that the holy book of knowledge, it shall come. We'll wait for the day we pray someday, the rules will turn to our way. It's 1990, will the oppressions be broken? So we wrote it in 1990. That was the first rap I did and performed in front of hundreds of people. It was an event for Ethiopia.
Well, what skills do you think someone needs to have to be an MC?
They've got to be a wordsmith. They've got to know how to play with words. And the biggest thing for me is they've got to bring their own swagger and style to the table. Don't try to be somebody else. You bring your own flavour. So it's those sort of elements, and just learning how to break down story matters and subject matters to appeal to those. You can't be somebody else to be an MC. If you can think of from Nas to KRS to Scarface, they're all different, but they're all MCs and they stand alone. So it's about being yourself within that genre.
Would you say MCing is a natural ability?
For me, I think it's a gift. Everybody can rap. My late mother could rap. But there's something unique about MCs. They bring a different je ne sais quoi, is that the right pronunciation, to the table. They bring a different flavour. They bring themselves, they bring the swagger, they bring an element. It's kind of mystifying when you really watch a real MC do their thing. There's two elements with it if you're looking at it in that concept, because you're looking at the cash cow. It makes money, the industry makes a lot of money. They know that it's worldwide. Hip hop is one of the most diverse musical genres in the whole planet, so they know that it makes money everywhere. And then the other element for me is what society gains from it. People like us that are part of the hip hop culture. So there's two different areas of that. For example, I've become an author of fantasy and sci-fi, and for me that was a huge element because I became an author at the age of 50. And hip hop is still part of an element for that. So I'll say that there's stuff still yet to come.
And what would you say drives you?
Drives me, once again, I will say God, and the fact that I'm me. I've been gifted with this blessing and I've got to do something with it. So that's my driving force. And there's enough bad and sadness in the world, so I'm driven just as much as people that are doing negative stuff to do things positive. So those are sort of my elements of a driving force.
Seeing that throughout the time that you've been involved in the industry, what would you say, what advice would you give to the youth of today, to achieve what they want to achieve with their dreams in the industry?
I would say believe in yourself. One thing, if I could go back in time for myself as a youth, is believe in yourself. and allow yourself to grow. I would tell them they need to learn their artistry. If you want to become an MC or whatever you want to do, learn your craft, learn how you flow, learn how you work, and then study the greats. Study the greats from all over the world, but also study the greats within your community. You can learn a lot from them. And then the biggest element, if somebody wants to become a rapper, I would say to them that you need to understand the business. This is where a lot of people fall down.
Oh, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, you're welcome.
A lot of people don't believe in themselves. However, Apple's just taught us that if you put your mind to it, you can achieve your artistic goals. So stop and go for it. Damn. Moving on, we are now going to show you what a DJ, aka a disc jockey, has to offer in the hip hop scene. So buckle up and open your ears to the beautiful sounds of vinyls being scratched and samples being cut. How the hell did I change my clothes so quick?
So you like music? Is that kind of like your thing?
Pattern recognition.
Pattern recognition.
Music is just a series of altered patterns. The musician creates the pattern and makes us anticipate the resolution, then holds back, makes you wait for it. There's patterns in everything and everyone.
What's mine?
You want to be famous? Your parents, teachers all told you one thing, one way to be, and you ignored them.
And now I'm here.
So you are, so you are, so you are, so you are.
Hi,
Hello,
my name's A. Your name is?
my name's Thomas.
Nice to meet you,
Good to
Thomas.
see you, eh?
What do you do, Thomas?
Oh God, I do lots of things, but I think for the purpose of this documentary that you're shooting, I'm a hip hop promoter from Birmingham, UK. I promote an event called Scratch Club, which has run for 11 years. What we do is mix grassroots Birmingham MCs and DJs with world-class touring acts that you probably would have heard of. What does it mean to be a DJ? Oh wow, that's a pretty broad question. I think, to be honest with you, I think there's as many meanings to be a DJ as there are people DJing. I think music is such a subjective thing. It's just such a massive, a zeitgeisty entity. I'm not sure if my answer would suit everybody, but for me, I don't know. I mean, my favourite parts of DJing is actually to the massive crowds. And it might sound like a glory-seeking thing, but I don't mean that, right? When you're left on a big stage at a festival and there's 4,000 people dancing to you, you're actually in the loneliest place in the world, right? Because you're far away from them. You can't see people. You can see this kind of moving thing. There's space everywhere. Then the smoke machines go off. You can't see your own equipment. And that's the moment when you realise you've done your practice, you've learned your trade, and you do it. And there's a certain feeling to that. It's a real feeling of completion, you know. I'll be honest, working here as a sound man and watching rappers that I've never heard of smash it blows my mind. You know, I mean, there's a few producers I could name, but I don't want to name drop particularly. But yeah, all of these things, sometimes listening to the washing machine rattle in a rhythm will give me an idea for a track. Train tracks, I'll find a rhythm within that somewhere. But I mean, hip hop, it was brand new when I first discovered it when I was a kid, and there was kind of Herbie Hancock did Rocket and the guy started scratching on it with all these robots, and breakdancers were coming on the TV, and it was just like the coolest thing in the universe, right? And, we had these four elements, and hip hop came from pretty much New York and nowhere else. And I've watched it, go to the East Coast, this whole gangster thing come out and films being made and whatever, and and to be honest with you, when I see like kind of chart hip hop now, I kind of looking at these kind of weird, kind of mutant people that look a bit like porn stars, and there's kind of 808s. Yeah, it's not my new hip hop isn't my favourite. I'm much more a fan of the golden age part. Your role in society, you're an entertainer, but you're not always the main focus anymore. You know, you're playing a bar somewhere. You're kind of this musical wallpaper. Do you know what I mean? You're just part of a vibe. Do you know what I mean?
Who is your biggest influence?
Good one. I suppose I could say the obvious ones like DJ Shadow or DJ Premier, but I've got to say my favourite producer in the world is a UK guy. He's called Tipper.
What is the highlight of your career?
Damn, this interview. I can't remember most of it. No, I'll be honest, I think there's a real nice festival that I play every year called Shambhala. Performing there in front of thousands is, one of my favourite things. Pretty awesome.
If you could give any words of advice to up-and-coming DJs, what would they be?
Learn your tunes. Practice every day. But you know what? I think there's a lot more to being a DJ than just that, but that would be my strongest piece of advice. Learn your tunes and practice, right? Totally. However, you might need to be a graphic designer, a videographer, a promoter, and all those other things just to make your DJ career work these days. You have to kind of do everything for yourself. You know what I mean? And until such time as you get an agent who does it for you. Yeah, my advice would be, kind of learn a little bit of every trade. Do you know what I mean? But definitely learn your tunes, definitely practice, definitely dig in the crates or on the online version of crates. Get new music all the time. Keep yourself inspired.
Thank you very much for being there.
Perfect.
You're most welcome. Thanks for having me.
Wow, that was so cool. Man, I wish I had a deck to remix on. Anyways, that was Tom. And he also, like many of you, aspired to be a musician. And just like that, acknowledge the knowledge and follow your dreams. There's more to hip-hop than just rhymes and beats. It also involves some movement. For this next interview, we took a trip down to London to find out more about what it takes to be a breakdancer.
Let's go now. Rockin' a saucy t-shirt.
Also known as B-Girl Matt. I was originally born and raised in Hong Kong, but I've been living in London for over 10 years now, and I've been breaking since 2013.
So breaking really means the world to me. I can't imagine what I'd be doing every day if I wasn't dancing. So after my 9 to 5:30 job, all I want to do is just head to the studio and just be with all my friends who are breakers as well, and just train with them, socialize with them, hang out after practice as well. I think for breaking, it's seen as both a sport and also a form of art. So I think to become a breaker, you don't need any prerequisites. Anyone can become a breaker, but it is important to understand that it would help if you see it from a sporting element where it takes a lot of focus, determination, hard work, sweat, blood and tears, but also the art element where you have to be creative as well. You don't want to just copy someone else's moves and just replicate that in a battle or a cipher, but you have to have that element of artistic interest as well towards it. I think when it comes to influence in my breaking, it really comes down to the people that I've ended up training with. So everyone around me would have played a part in how I am today, you know? Yeah. And I really appreciate the fact that I started at university and a lot of my friends at uni taught me. And then over time, as I started to improve in my breaking skills, I started competing or training in other countries as well. And then they then have an influence on how I dance today too. For example, I've trained in Taiwan, I've trained in Australia, and now I am the breaker that I am today.
What kind of things influence you?
I think what influences my breaking most is probably other dance styles too. So I've always taken an interest in house, for example, and sometimes I love to incorporate some of the house moves into my top rocks. And I think just seeing all style dancers and the way they know how to play with the music, use their body really fluidly, or have really amazing shapes, for example, all of these elements I try to then incorporate into my own breaking, just to, I guess, stand out and be a bit different to everyone else.
Yeah.
I think coming from my background, so I was born and raised in Hong Kong, and having Asian parents, they've always wanted me to be, you know, an accountant or a lawyer or something, and they were always really worried when they found out I started becoming so into breaking. They always said, make sure you don't become a full-time dancer, you know, always still have like another career. I'm not a full-time breaker. I do have my full-time job, but they still, you know, had some concerns of what breaking was, I guess. I think people have impressions of breaking based on movies, perhaps. You know, it's associated with gangs, drugs, or smoking all the time. But really, that's not what breaking is today, or that's not how I've started with my breaking in my dance circle. Like all of us, we have our own lives, we have our own jobs, and we're just so passionate about this dance that after our work hours, we come together and we're dancing, you know, and we're all working towards competitions and things as well. And over the years, I think I've managed to change my parents' perspective, and I'm really happy about that, because now they see how much I've been able to commit to breaking and how much I love it and how much it brings me joy, and that in turn brings them joy, and they have no problems with me breaking anymore.
Wicked!
Breaking is really changing nowadays as people start to recognize it more as something that anyone could be doing. We all do understand it started, you know, from the States where it started with gangs and everything, but it's really changed since then, and now you just see it as any other dance form as well. It's just something, a way to express yourself, a way to, you know, maybe sweat it out and let loose. It's a way to meet people as well. It's just like any other passion or activity or sport or hobby.
Okay. If you could give some word of advice to future up-and-coming breakdancers, what would it be?
I think the biggest advice is to never give up. Although that sounds so cliche, you know, you are going to encounter injuries, you are going to encounter losses during battles, you are going to encounter maybe never qualifying for the first couple of years, but it is that determination that really differentiates who is going to win one day or who is going to achieve their own personal goals of getting certain moves. It's to never give up and to keep on practicing and building strength as well as part of your training routine, so that you can get the moves that you want to get. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
No worries.
Rob, you can stop now. Anyways, that was Pico Nat sharing her wisdom and experience. On to the next. We are now back in Birmingham, and we met up with Quartz Crystallis, who's a graffiti artist. And he accepted to do an interview with us about graffiti.
check me out, Quidouts on Instagram. You know what I mean? Quartz Crystallis on Bandcamp. Get that hip hop music in. More links to be following. Peace. So, what does it mean to be a graffiti writer? For me, it means being innovative, clever. It means having style within the movement of the art form. It means being able to be better at what I do every time I pick up that spray can or marker or pen or that pencil. It doesn't matter. It means all of these things simultaneously. It's a collection of things because really it's about honing your skills on many different levels. So it's not just, oh, I'm just a graffiti writer. No, it's about, well, you have to recognize who came before you. You have to look at the style masters that came before you and what they did and what you're doing. So, you know, are you going to try and emulate them? Are you going to try and be better than them? You know, which way is it? You know, as a youngster growing up, it was about seeing what the previous style masters had done, and I tried to emulate that. I wanted to paint trains, I wanted to paint subways, I wanted to paint, but these things are native to New York City, and I'm from Birmingham, so I had to find a different way to express myself. You know what I mean? Well, the first thing that they need is passion for the art form. Number one, that's one of the first things they need, and just for a love of the art that's come before you as a youngster, and also a good understanding of style, a good understanding of what comes first when you first started to get involved in graffiti. You know, most people start tagging first, but really you have to learn about hand styles, and realistically you're learning about hand styles and control through tagging. And then after you're tagging to a particular level, you start talking about doing what we call dubs, which is like a one-color painting. Sorry, a two-color painting. What I'm on about? Two-color painting, usually chrome, usually with a black outline. Sometimes you might throw some white in there. You know what I mean? Just for some highlights. And then you graduate from doing what's called a throw up or a dub. You graduate to then going into color pieces or what's called a full color. And when you do a full color, sometimes you're gonna want to accompany the full color painting with some characters and a background, and bubbles and stars and all these different things that accompany a composition in that way. So you really learn about camera control doing dubs. You learn about the speed of the paint. You learn about the accuracy of the paint. You know, and then you start to move on to doing full color paintings. Once you've moved on to full color paintings with characters and letters, you can then start to do conceptual pieces where you look at the whole modus of what's called a production, and which is taking out a whole space with a big theme involving all the skills that you've learned.
Not just slightly into a bigger picture. What made hip hop culture a success?
Hip hop culture was successful because it was required at the time. It was something that the community needed to save itself. There were a lot of young people out there that were disaffected.
Sorry, what time is this that we're speaking? What years?
Oh, I'm talking about the inception of hip hop, you know, from the very beginning. So if we want to go back to Cedric Avenue or the black parties in New York City, which, to be fair, I always say if it wasn't for reggae music and the big sound systems that came into the black parties and those things at the time in New York City, then I really feel like that part of the culture wouldn't have been as prevalent as it is. But what I would say is that when those block parties happened, so a lot changed, because when the beats were played and the breaks were played and people got involved in that movement, because you're just coming out of the disco era, you know what I mean? So a lot of people were still dancing and wanting to be involved in the funkiness of what music had to say, and that's why the breaks are so important. The break beats were really important, and it was about that moment where the DJ would play that break and then play that break again.
Go crazy, yo!
Because that would make the crowd go crazy. So then obviously 2 turntables got involved with the same record where the DJ would play that break, but on the other turntable had the same record and play that break again as soon as this one finished. So as soon as this break finished, so there's such a good movement of energy that made hip hop move in the way that it did. It moved that way because, like I said, people needed something after they came out of the civil rights movement and police brutality and all these things that were happening up and down the country at the time. People needed some freedom, some excitement. They needed something to believe in. So I think hip hop comes out of a need to give people something to believe in, outside of what they're told by the sort of national rhetoric of modern society.
Word of advice to any up-and-coming graffiti writers and youthful souls that are in love with this art and they want to take it up, what would it be?
Study the history, study the history of graffiti art worldwide. Who was doing what, where? Look at New York City. Look at other places in the world. Look at the inception of graffiti in those cities. The who's who. Look at the who's who that's in your city that you're trying to, start in. Research that. Have a look at style. And look at how important letter forming, style, characters. Look at the whole thing. Don't just jump in and think you can paint or you can do this or you can do that. And also look at respect, because that's a key element, of understanding graffiti in your city. You can't just paint over somebody's just painted something for, you don't know who they are in relation to what you're doing, and you come and paint something over that's not as good. I always look at it like, if you can't burn this, don't paint over it.
Thank you very much for being here with us. It was a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. You know what I mean? It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. You know what I mean?
I hope that painted a picture for you guys and that you feel like you can try it yourself. Remember, be patient, as perfection takes time. Well, now that we've explained all the elements,
There's more elements.
There's more.
Yeah.
All right, there is one left. Knowledge.
This is Kiz. I'm from Birmingham. We're in Sturchley. I'm the founder of Hip Hop Heals CIC, and we're a community non-profit social enterprise that looks at mental health through the lens of hip hop culture. So I trained as a therapeutic writer, and that means that I use words for well-being. Hip hop and writing are two art forms that I'm drawn to. So I've been using it in the mental health space and the therapeutic writing that I've trained to do. I swap poems and stories for hip hop lyrics and reggae lyrics and UK garage lyrics and drum and bass lyrics, and then you can do the poetic kind of therapy kind of stuff in a different route with different people. Hip hop's a state of mind, I think, so it's like a universal thing for human beings. We want to tell our stories, we want to speak up about things that matter to us, so I guess the traditions in Africa and Asia that did that, and then they started to merge as the transatlantic slave trade started the mass distribution of people across the globe. So where cultures meet, more styles of oration come, storytelling cultures, you know, really literate in the art of projecting voice without being handwritten through the books, because people are, you know, not all from literate populations. So in terms of culturally, I think it's a phenomenon that's rooted across the globe from the beginning of man. So the origination of hip hop as we know it, what we call hip hop culture, will be the Bronx in the 70s, when people were facing eviction and houses were being burnt down, like massive flats and apartment blocks were being burnt down, so landlords could make lots of money from the insurance. People were out on the streets talking about their pain and suffering. Education budgets were cut, so people were unable to access music, dance, creativity through the curriculum, so they were spreading out on the streets, doing it on the street corners, on the walls, instead of in the art galleries on campus. Jamaican culture and UK-based sound systems have been in the UK 60s, I guess, but people have been migrating here since Roman times from Africa and so on and so forth. So when you look at when DJ Kool Herc went to America and took the sound system culture over there, started battling in the parks, that sort of leapt straight over to the UK without the evolution with the sort of Costa Rican vibes. So in the UK we've got more sort of like Indian heritage, Pakistani heritage, Caribbean heritage, and that Jamaican bass system sort of had its own flavour. So when hip hop was going up in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, and Long Island in a parallel, over here it sort of like went straight into what we've got in disco and house and UK garage and jungle and drum and bass. It's taken its different paths, so our drill and grime has got a different flavour to American drill and grime.
With all that being said, how do you choose to use hip hop?
I just really jam when I feel like it, do you know what I mean? It's in the car, in the house. I've not really been mixing hip hop as much as drum and bass and garage, and house I love, but the thing is, hip hop and writing are two art forms that I'm drawn to. So I've been using it in the mental health space and the therapeutic writing that I've trained to do. I swap poems and stories for hip hop lyrics and reggae lyrics and UK garage lyrics and drum and bass lyrics, and then you can do the poetic kind of therapy kind of stuff in a different route with different people.
And what made you believe in this culture?
I just resonated with it. I heard stories about people being outsiders and talking about being other from society, so that's how I felt growing up. And you know, I had a really mixed background where I was in Birmingham to start off with, near Smethwick, in Bearwood, right by Handsworth, and the Soho Road was just up the road for us. So when we were kids, we were like floating around, loads of reggae, it was in the house all the time. Grew up with reggae, and then yeah, just got the old hip hop buzz when my brother played I think it was a Wu-Tang tape. No, it would have been before that. I can't remember the actual first hip hop thing I heard. It must have been, yeah, it was right into the 70s. Would have been the beginning, because I was born in 79, so all that kind of music was still fresh. I don't think you can really understand it. I think it's got many forms. And whether we like it or not, things change. So people are on the Roots Girl vibe saying, oh, you've got to be like boom bap, it's pure, it's got to be about knowledge. But at the end of the day, those people still want to go out and have a drink and loosen up. So if you're out celebrating your birthday, you don't want to listen to social critical commentary. So, you know, dance, like party rap has also got its place, you know what I mean? Sometimes you just want to switch off.
What is your goal within the hip hop culture?
I don't have goals. I hope that I can just enjoy being part of it, man.
If you could give some word of advice to anyone who wants to like use this culture for themselves, what would it be?
Just do your own thing. Nobody's got a there's a place for everybody in hip hop. There's no restriction. Nobody's got like a barrier to come into hip hop, because only the mainstream presents a certain view of what it is. But then somewhere along the line, if you look and dig deep enough, you're gonna find somebody who looks like you, comes from a similar place as you, and is doing hip hop in whatever way, shape or form, whether it's breaking or, you know, graffiti or music or whatever. So just find your own tribe and just get on with it, man. Like, don't worry what other people think.
Thank you very much for coming.
Cheers, dude. Big ups, Hip Hop Heels.
The people we've spoken to today, the things we've learned, they're just a small part of a much greater movement. We want you to consider your part in this movement and what you contribute to society. Hip hop, it may not be the solution to all our problems, but it is the backbone of self-expression. And with that comes the knowledge of yourself and the world. Until next time, peace.
This is how we chill from 93 till.
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 This is how we chill from 93 until.
This is how we chill from 93 I be cool. School's in session, but I'm freshin'. Rapping, so I take time off to never rhyme. So I'm off on my own shit with my own clique. Roaming the back roads with a fat stove and blunt. Folding runs, holding stunts captive with my persona. Plus a bomber, Sestin. Niggas is testing my patience, but I stay freshin'.
Resting at the mall, attendance on Nord. But I am shopping for my winter exploits. A few fits, some new kicks. I often do this cause it's the pits not being decked.
Check out the wild side, what was in the foul time, why there's the real movie, yeah, let's go. Check out the wild side, check out the wild side. I got the wild side, what was in the foul time, smokers, don't you move, sluggers, pow, pow. I got the wild side, what was in the foul time, my guns go boom, boom, yeah, let's go.
Flip the flyer, attire female's desire. Baby, you can step to this if you admire the extraordinary dapper rapper. Keep tabs on your main squeeze before I tap. I'm Macca, attacker with the smoothness. I do this, keep it what my crew gets. Loot, props, respect, and blunts to pass. Crews talk shit, but in my face they kiss my ass. They bite flows, but we make up new ones. If you're really dope, why ain't you signed yet? But I get my loot from Jive Zomba. I'm a bomb ya. You will see from now to infinity. This is how we chill from 93.
This is how we chill from 93 till.
This is how we chill from 93 till.
Yeah, this is how we chill from 93 till.
This is how we chill from 93 till.
This is how we chill from 93 till.
Yeah, this is how we chill from 93 till.
This is how we chill from 93 till. Just cooling out, you know what I'm saying? But who's chilling around the land, you know?